Okay, so billing. It's part of the business. You have clients, their fees are coming to you, and you have to send out bills. There's quite a few things that you need to keep in mind when you're doing that. The first thing, it's kind of an ethics thing. There's a tension, a fundamental tension in billing between your interest and the interest of your client. And you need to have that kind of in the back of your mind as you're making decisions on what to bill for, what to advise the client to do, because I'm telling you, sometimes something's going to be in your best interest, but it's probably not going to be in the best interest of your client. And if you filter everything through that, I think you're going to wind up on the right side of the issue. For example, advising a client to take certain actions, which may or may not be in the client's best interest, could be close, is in your best interest because there's a billing issue there. Sometimes in a larger firm, there's pressure on the lower associates for billable hours. There's metrics for how many billable hours you are required to turn in. So sometimes that's a tension. Are you doing something that may or may not advance the case, but you are putting billable hours into the system? You need to be kind of aware of that. One of the big things that comes up in the ethics and billing is the issue of non-refundable fees. The short answer to that is there is no such thing as a non-refundable fee. I don't care if you put it in the retainer agreement, have the client sign in blood, you can't do that. If you say, okay, you're going to pay me X amount of dollars, and you can never get that back. Well, what if the client decides after a day, I don't like my lawyer, you're fired. Well, you don't get any of the feedback. You'll be before the disciplinary proceeding. Your client will get his or her money back, and you'll have a problem. How about collecting fees? Now, if you do things right, you're not going to be owed fees, but let me tell you something. In the real world, you're going to have issues where you're going to be owed fees and the client's not paying. And you have to really kind of step back and think about this one before you charge. This isn't like any other business. If there's an account receivable and it's not being paid, yeah, you try to collect it in-house. Maybe you send it to a collection agency or a collection law firm. Maybe you sue the person to collect the money. It doesn't work exactly like that in our business. First of all, under most disciplinary rules, you can't refer that to a collection agency. You can collect it yourself, but you usually can't refer it. And you can't use any of the information that you received from the client on a privileged attorney-client privilege basis in the collection of this debt. Because now, presumably, the representation's done. They're not a client, but they're a former client. And now you're trying to collect money from them, but you have information that you obtained from them on a privileged basis. You can't use it. The other thing, and this is probably the most important thing when you're deciding, am I gonna sue the client? Because obviously in-house collection is okay. A phone call, a bill, please pay, that kind of thing. Usually that resolves the issues. I'm talking about a situation where everything you've done to try to collect that fee, letters, phone calls, polite emails, are being ignored and you're not getting paid. So the obvious question is, are we going to sue the client? Can you sue a client? Yeah, you can. But there's a couple problems with that. First of all, you're opening yourself up to a malpractice claim, because what would a normal defendant do when sued? They're looking for counterclaims, right? You would do that. You would advise your client to do that. Well, what's a counterclaim against a lawyer who's suing you to collect his or her fees? Malpractice. You didn't handle the case correctly. That's going to happen. And you have to ask yourself, is that something that I really want to, risk myself based on the fee that I'm trying to collect? It depends on the amount, I guess. You also could have an ethics complaint. Clients tend to turn on the lawyer when the representation is done, when the lawyer is trying to collect the fee. You were Superman before this happened. You were a great lawyer, and now you're trying to collect fees. You did this wrong, you did that wrong, you didn't return my phone calls, blah, blah, blah. That is huge, and you want to really think about, am I going to take that risk depending on how much money I'm trying to collect? What I would advise, you take every effort to settle it without a lawsuit. If you can do it by just talking with the client, maybe you're going to have to, shave some amount of that fee off to make the client happy, do that. There's also arbitration, which is available in most states. In some states, it's mandatory. In my jurisdiction, depending on the amount involved, it's mandatory. So you go in and, you present your case to the arbitrator, or the client does, excuse me, and then you respond, the arbitrator makes a decision, everybody's bound by the decision, and the matter is resolved. What about withdrawing from a matter because you're not being paid? We've talked about this in other videos, but it might not be that easy to get out. If the basis of your request to withdraw from a matter is on not being paid, depending on how far you're into the matter and depending on other circumstances, if you're in a court case, the judge may say, that's not good enough. You're in, you may take a bath on the fees, but I'm not going to let you out. So withdrawing is maybe not be permissible in a court proceeding, and you might not be able to withdraw even if it isn't a court proceeding. The client goes back and files a disciplinary proceeding against you for withdrawing. I would not be that confident by saying, well, I had a right to do that because they weren't paying me. I'm not saying that won't work, but it's not a slam dunk either. So these are some of the issues that are going to come up in billing and some of the things that you should keep in mind.